She seems extremely cool. But tell me more about Japan's Prime Minister.
She is pretty cool. She's a mold breaker. Of course, she's the first Japanese female Prime Minister. She is not a part of the old party machinery in the sense that she comes from a very ordinary middle-class background, whereas many of Japan's former Prime Ministers have been the sons of former Prime Ministers or former ministers. She is a sort of refreshing character. She communicates well on social media. She plays the drums. She was in a heavy metal the drummer in a heavy metal band at university, and she still picks up the sticks quite often. She rides a motorbike, or has done. She probably doesn't so much anymore. She's generally very cool. She has, like Margaret Thatcher, an iconic handbag which has been selling out across Japan. She's altogether a rather refreshing figure, though not especially young. She's 62, which is kind of average for Japanese PMs. But no, a very interesting new figure indeed.
And she's won what is an extraordinarily large majority, the biggest majority that her party, the LDP, has had.
The biggest majority that any party has had since the end of the Second World War. Nobody's had a mandate like this. So it's incredibly powerful and unprecedented.
So Noah, what was it like, or what is it like in Tokyo?
Well, there was a lot of uncertainty heading into this election. It was a much more fluid moment in Japanese politics than we've had for a long time. And even on election day, nobody really knew how things were going to turn out, not least because there was a giant snowstorm that hit Japan on election day and made it very hard to get to polling places. Even Tokyo, which is rarely snowy, was covered in white. And when the results started to become clear, the historic scale of this victory, it felt a bit like the small earthquakes that are more common here, a bit like the ground kind of shifting under one's feet. And it was, I think, a really stunning result, even for people inside the LDP.
Perhaps you can give us a quick primer of what indeed are her big promises.
Yeah, so I think her slogan essentially is that she wants to make Japan stronger and she wants to make Japan prosperous. Hard to argue with either element of those, but the stronger piece is essentially about beefing up Japan's armed forces, building out the security state. The prosperous piece gets a bit trickier when you get into the details of how she plans to make that happen. But these are long-standing goals that the LDP has had. I think it's worth remembering that for all of her mold-breaking style, she is a 30-year veteran of the 70-year ruling party in Japan. She's very much a creature of the establishment. She's not an outsider trying to tear down the establishment. She's the one the LDP turned to really fend off the challenge from the kind of populist disruptors who were starting to make inroads heading into this election.